Hi everyone, it's Chris and welcome back to another video. Thank you for popping by today. It's great to have you along. I haven't done many videos recently. That's because I've been busy having a life. I've been on holiday a couple of times, went over to France and a few weeks after that over to Spain. I came back about 2 weeks ago and just haven't got around to doing a video. So I thought I would do a video. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you about a dozen songs that I absolutely hate by bands that I really love. Generally, I think these bands are tremendous. I love most of their catalogue, but there's some songs that really stand out in their back catalogue that I just despair with, and these are a dozen of those. So I'm going to start off with one of my favourite bands, actually, and that's Thin Lizzy. Now, I don't possess the first three or the first two albums, and I probably could have chosen songs from those two, if I'm honest. But I'm going to choose from the kind of like from when they became like a four-piece onwards. So that was Nightlife in 1974 onwards. But there was a version of the band in the early 80s that featured Snowy White. And I do like that version of the band, actually. I saw them a couple of times on the Renegade tour and on the Chinatown tour. But they brought out a single, which wasn't on the Renegade album. And it's absolutely atrocious, and I'm really glad it's not an album. It really would have spoilt it. And it's Trouble Boys. So this is a song that is written by a guy called Billy Bremner, who I think played with Rockpile. He certainly played alongside Nick Lowe and so on. It's a song that was also recorded by Dave Edmunds. I think it's on his album, is it called Tracks on Wax, from about 77, 78. And it's a decent version of the song. But this is so un-Thin Lizzy. I absolutely hate it. Now, the reason I've got it is because I collect their back catalogue, so I had to have it. But it's a dreadful song, and I'm really glad it's not on an album. And the rest of the songs I've got for you today are on an album. So in many ways, these are songs that I hate by bands I love, but they're also songs I think spoil albums as well. So next up is a band. I love this band. At least I love them up to about 1980. And since then, and they're still going, they're still touring, I think they're still producing stuff. I'm not being bothered by them at all. And that's because the era of the band I love the most is the version of the band that had a singer called Bon Scott. Of course, we're talking about ACDC. They produced some absolutely brilliant albums, Let There Be Rock, Power Age, Highway to Hell, and so on. But some of the songs on their first couple of albums are a little bit questionable. And I'm choosing a song from this album, which I think is their second album here in the UK, Dirty Deeds Done Dirt Cheap. And there's a song on here, it's the third song on side one, it's called Big Balls. And it's kind of like puerile, pathetic teenage humour. I just hate it. And it sits right in the middle of the side, so it really spoils the album for me. You know, it's a kind of a sneery, leery kind of vocal from Bon Scott, pathetic lyrics. It's not even a very good tune. And that's my second choice of songs I hate by bands I love. The next one is not so much of an abomination as that particular one, but for me it spoils what is a classic album. This is a band I've seen a couple of times, and this is the version of the band that features a German guitarist called Michael Schenker, and it's UFO. This is one of their classic albums, without a doubt. It's probably my second favourite album, and it would possibly edge Obsession if it didn't have a cover version on here. And the cover turns up as the second song on side two. It's Love's Alone Again, or it's so unnecessary. It's, in terms of a cover, yeah, it's all right. It just isn't UFO. It just doesn't suit the album, and it just irritates me every time I hear it, and I always skip it or always move the needle on. And that's my third one. The next is an opening track, so you can bypass it, I guess, but it's really weird, and it opens I think this is the third album by this particular guy or band, and it's the Jimi Hendrix Experience. You won't recognise the cover possibly, it's a Backtracks reissue, but the album is called Axis Boulders Love, and the first song on side one is called EXP, and it's just this noise. It's just such a strange way. It's not even avant-garde or innovative or interesting. It's just noisy and rubbish, and it starts the album off. Yeah, granted, you can miss it out, but it's very irritating and spoils what is a really good album. The next band are first band I ever saw live. I saw them in 1974. I was 11, and I went with an older lad, and I went because his friend dropped out, and at the last minute I was kind of drafted in, if you like. He was the son of one of my mum's friends, and I went to see this band, and they were just sensational. I liked them in the 70s quite a lot. The band is Status Quo. They did some great albums in 1970s. I think this album is where they started to decline. It's 77's Rocking All Over the World. And you might think, oh, he's going to choose the title track. No, I don't mind that song, actually. The song I can't stand on here is called Dirty Water. For me, that sounds like the band they started to become, and from that moment onwards, I just went off the band completely. I was into punk in '77, and so this band were kind of exiting anyway. But Dirty Water, I just think is an atrocious song, and it signals the path that this band would take with some really poor material post '77. Next up is a band who have, a bit like Jimi Hendrix, an absolutely legendary guitarist in their ranks, someone who changed guitar playing forever, probably, as influential as Jimi Hendrix, and of course that's Eddie Van Halen. Their fifth album, can't remember, is this one. This is their fifth album, Diver Down. Terrible cover. It's kind of a part of Eddie's Frankenstein guitar, I guess. But the cover kind of summarises the album. Not much thought gone into it, and this album is very much like this. It was a really poor album, and there's a couple of songs I definitely could have chosen off here, but again, this is another cover version, and it's a version of the Martha Reeves and the Vandellas, I guess that was the original, Dancing in the Street. It's just appalling. I mean, I can't put up with David Bowie and Mick Jagger's version. I think that's dreadful, but this version, oh, absolutely shocker, awful. Great band. Track I hate. Next up is a band, I love this band, and I love this version of the band. This version of the band features one of the best rock vocalists ever, and that's Ronnie James Dio, and the band are Rainbow. Now, this was the album that followed Rising, which is a tough gig because that's one of the greatest rock albums ever made. So this is the third album by this band, and a definite step down. It's a decent album. It has Gates of Babylon on it, which I think is one of their best songs. But Rainbow Eyes, that closes the album, is just dreadful. It's this ballad, orchestration in it. Yes, there's quite a nice vocal from Ronnie James Dio, who's got a fantastic voice, but it's just appalling. It's awful. And the song before it, Sensitive to Light, I possibly could have included that as well. But so with a very steady hand and a really sharp chisel, you can probably just take Rainbow Eyes off this album. I'm sure they would have had other stuff, maybe anyway, instead of that. But that is one of the worst songs they ever did by a long way. Next up is a band different from the others in that it's not a kind of a classic rock band. It's a punk rock band, and it's one of my favourite punk bands, New York-based Ramones, and this is their fourth album, Road to Ruin. And I started to get off the Ramones bus round about this time. So the first three albums for me are seminal albums, must own, must have, groundbreaking albums, brilliant fun, great tunes and everything else. And there's some absolutely brilliant material on here. So for example, I Want to Be Sedated, She's the One, Bad Brain, just fantastic. But a cover, again, another cover, a cover of the Searchers, Needles and Pins, is just a shocker. This is a Phil Spector produced album, and I just don't think he was appropriate for the Ramones. They need to have a harder edge to them, and I think Edge of the End of the Century, which followed this, is slightly better album in some ways because it doesn't have that kind of odd moment like this album seems to have. You know, Don't Come Close I don't particularly like, but Needles and Pins, oh my god, awful, terrible stuff. Next up is a band I've seen probably about 4 or 5 times. Fantastic band, and the song I'm choosing is a song that kind of demonstrates their humour in many ways, but it's just dreadful, and it comes from probably what's regarded as one of their worst albums, although there are moments on it which I think are very good. The band is Rush, the album is Caress of Steel. What's this from, 1975, something like that? So this is the album with Bastille Day and the Necromancer, which I do like. I think they're great songs, especially Bastille Day. Which Rainbow, I think, ripped the riff off for Kill the King. But anyway, that's a great song. But the second song is called I Think I'm Going Bald, which is just crap. It is a dreadful song, and, you know, a song that I hate by a band that I love. Think I'm Going Bald by Rush. We've got 3 more big hitters now. 3 more really, really big hitters. They're not ranked, these at all, but... there's a third, in third place, if you like, is a song from this album. So this is Houses of the Holy, of course, by Led Zeppelin. And there's some great songs on here. There are some really great songs on here. I don't like this album as much as Presence or Physical Graffiti or the albums that came before it. So it's kind of a gradual decline for me with Led Zeppelin. But the Rain song is fantastic. What else is on here that I really... No Quarter, I think, is great. I do love Over the Hills and Far Away as well. But the grunge is just awful. It is terrible. It's kind of this funky little thing. I just can't stand the sound of it, the production of it, the guitar sound, the lyrics. You know, it's Led Zeppelin trying desperately to be in a parody kind of way, trying to be James Brown. It's just awful. And again, it's on the end of a side. So with that lovely sharp chisel that got rid of Rainbow Eyes, you can get rid of that song. In second place, if there was a rank order, is a song from an album I love by a band I adore, but it's just a dreadful song. And so they could have improved this hugely. This is Fireball by Deep Purple, my favourite band. This is the 25th anniversary copy of it, which has 2 discs and some extra songs. And the song on it is kind of, again, it's on the end of a side, so you can pick the needle up before. But it's a kind of almost a country and western song. It's called Anyone's Daughter. It is, you know, maybe it's typical kind of Ian Gillan humour or something, I don't know. It sits between In Rock and Machine Head, this album. And I guess without this album, you might not have had Machine Head. But that song, Anyone's Daughter, is just shite. It's awful. And bearing in mind, this is a band that, for the UK version of this album, left off Strange Kind of Woman. And on the US version, or the North American version, they put on Strange Kind of Woman and took off Demon's Eye. But on both versions, they kept Anyone's Daughter, which is just a really strange decision. Dreadful song, awful song. Is it one of the worst songs? No, I think actually there's an album called Turning to Crime, which I think I could have chosen a couple of songs by Deep Purple, but from their classic period, that is without a doubt a band that I love who produced a song I absolutely hate. The last song comes from the 4th album by a classic band, and this is a poignant one really, because it's Black Sabbath. And of course we lost Ozzy Osbourne recently, an absolute legend, a big part of my childhood, a brilliant singer, or a brilliant front man. There were plenty of better singers, Ian Gillan, Ronnie James Dio, I think are better singers, but as a front man, wow, amazing. But there's a song on this album, and they produced some brilliant albums, especially in the Ozzy era, and they produced some fantastic, groundbreaking, just amazing songs. But there's a song on here that I know is popular with lots of people, but I absolutely hate, and it's Changes. You know, there's occasional kind of acoustic numbers that they do on all of their albums, which kind of, you know, Planet Caravan, that kind of stuff, we kind of fit in a little bit different. But Changes, for me, with that piano, it's just dreadful. I hate it, and I feel bad saying that possibly, which is seen as Ozzy Osbourne's one of his greatest vocals maybe, but oh my god, it's just such a terrible song on what is a great album and what is an absolutely stellar band. So there you go, there's my dozen songs that I absolutely hate by bands I absolutely love. Tell me what you think in the comments below, and what are your examples of songs that you hate by bands you love. So thank you very much for tuning in. I'm sure I'll be back sometime with another video. Cheers.